My father decided that the family would participate. Appearances, always appearances. He forced me to wear a gingham dress, put a ribbon in my hair. Charles was in my arms with a little patriotic outfit. At the celebration, while my father drank with his friends and Tony danced with the girls, I managed to get a moment alone. I sat on a bench away from everyone, rocking Charles, who was restless with the noise. That's when she approached, the mayor's wife, Mrs. Laura Wilson, rich, elegant, childless. Everyone knew she suffered from not being able to have babies. "May I hold him for a bit?" she asked, looking at Charles with that face of someone dying of longing. I let her. She took him with such care, such tenderness. Charles, who was shy with strangers, calmed down right away. He even smiled. "He's beautiful," she whispered, "so beautiful." We stayed there in silence, her rocking my son, me thinking about life. Suddenly, she spoke. "It must be hard, so young, alone." "It is," I agreed. I had no strength to pretend. "If you need help, anything," I looked in her eyes. I saw kindness there, true kindness, not the fake charity of the church. "Ladies, are you serious?" "I am very serious." And that's how it started. Mrs. Wilson began to help me in secret. She'd send care packages, clothes for Charles, sometimes money, always discreet, always through third parties. My father thought it was charity from the church. With the money she gave, I started saving for my escape fund. I hid the bills in the lining of the mattress, among the diapers, in any corner I thought was safe, penny by penny, bill by bill. July flew by. Charles was already crawling, babbling his first words. "Mama" was the first. I cried so much when he said it. It was proof that despite everything, I was a mother. A real mother, not just the girl who gave birth. August brought another frustrated attempt. This time, I didn't even get to leave the house. Tony caught me packing the bag at night. "Going on a trip, sis?" he asked with that cynical smile. Charles has a fever. I was going to take him to the clinic." "Liar." He approached, cornered me against the wall. "You know what happens to liars." His hand on my neck, squeezing, not hard enough to kill, just to remind me that he could. "If you try to run away again, it won't be Dad who kills you. It'll be me and the bastard. Well, we can always make another one, right?" The threat to Charles was what broke me. I could endure anything, but not losing my son. I put away the bag, dismantled the plan for now. September came, and with it, Charles's first birthday. I made a simple cake with what flour I had. We sang happy birthday softly. My father didn't like fussing. The boy clapped his hands, smeared his face with frosting. For a moment, a brief moment, we were just a mother and son celebrating life. But reality returned quickly. That night, Tony drank too much. He came into my room staggering, reeking of whiskey. "It's been a year today," he said, looking at Charles sleeping in the makeshift crib. "A year since my son was born." "He's not your son." He laughed, an ugly laugh without humor. "No, look at him closely. The eyes, the jaw, he's the spitting image of me." "Get out of my room." "Your room?" More laughter. "Nothing here is yours. Not the room, not the sun. You're mine. Forgot?" He grabbed me. I tried to fight, but he was strong, was drunk, violent. Charles woke up with a commotion, started crying. "Shut him up," Tony growled. I broke free, ran to the crib. I rocked Charles, desperate to calm him. Behind me, I felt Tony approaching. "Good to see you two together, mother and son, my family, his family." Bile rose in my throat. I held Charles tighter, as if I could protect him with my body.
"One day," Tony continued, voice slurred with alcohol, "one day I'll tell him. I'll tell him who his real father is, and then the three of us will be a real family." That was the last straw. There, at that moment, with my son in my arms and that monster at my back, I made a decision. I was going to run away, even if it cost my life. But I was going to get Charles out of there, was going to save him from that hell. What I didn't know was that the opportunity was closer than I imagined, and it would come in the most tragic way possible. October started differently. My father was strange, quieter, drinking less. At first, I thought it was just in my head, but my mother noticed too. "John's acting odd," she commented one day, washing dishes. "He's tired, no appetite." It was true. The man who had always been a bull, strong and brutish, seemed to be withering. Yellowish skin, sunken eyes. But nobody said anything. In our house, showing concern was a sign of weakness. It was on an October morning that everything changed. I woke up to screams coming from my parents' room. I ran there with Charles in my arms. My father was lying on the floor, convulsing, foam coming from his mouth, his whole body rigid. My mother kneeling beside him, trying to hold him. "Call for help," she shouted. Tony appeared, frightened. For the first time in my life, I saw real fear in his eyes. He ran to call the pharmacist. He was the closest thing to a doctor we had back then. But it didn't help. By the time Mr. Thompson arrived with his medicine bag, my father had stopped foaming, stopped moving, stopped breathing. "Heart attack," the pharmacist diagnosed. "Massive. Nothing could be done." Dead. My father was dead. The man who terrorized me my whole life, who allowed all the abuse, who called and dead there on the bedroom floor in pajamas and slippers. I should feel something. Sadness, relief, anything. But I only felt emptiness. A huge emptiness, as if a weight I had been carrying for years had suddenly disappeared, and I didn't know how to walk without it. The wake was that same afternoon in a small, hot town. You can't wait. The house filled with people, relatives I'd never seen, friends from the bar, colleagues from the plant, all lamenting, all pretending that John Randall had been a good man. He was strict but fair, they'd say. He took care of his family, an honest worker, wise, but lies that everyone preferred to believe. Tony became the man of the house overnight. He received the condolences, organized the funeral, made the decisions. I saw in his face the pride of assuming his father's post. The new boss, the new owner. It was at the cemetery, watching the coffin being lowered, that it hit me. My father's death meant one thing, a chance. Maybe the only one I would have. The man who imprisoned me, who watched me, who threatened to kill me if I ran away, no longer existed. I looked at Tony on the other side of the grave. He was holding my mother, playing the role of the devoted son, but his eyes met mine, and in the midst of the mourning, the whole theater, he smiled, a small, discreet smile, just for me. The smile said it all. Now I'm in charge. Now you're even more mine. But he didn't know that at that exact moment, watching the dirt fall on my father's coffin, I was planning my freedom. Our freedom. Mine and Charles's. My father's death wasn't a tragedy. It was a miracle. The miracle I had prayed for so long. The first days after the funeral were a mess. People coming and going from the house, bringing food, giving condolences. My mother walked through the house like a lost soul, not knowing what to do without her husband to order her around.
Tony was strutting around, playing the head of the family, receiving the inheritance paperwork, signing documents. But I wasn't wasting time. While they dealt with the bureaucracy of death, I was planning life. Rosie showed up on the third day with her way of not caring about conventions. So, going to take the chance? I looked at Charles playing on the floor. 14 months already, walking on those wobbly little legs, saying random words. My beautiful, smart boy who deserved better than that cursed house. I am, but I need to be smart. When? Soon, before he takes over everything for good. The plan was simple. Wait for the will to be read, take my share because I was entitled to something, being a daughter, and disappear. Rosie had already talked to a cousin in New York who rented rooms to young women. It wasn't ideal, but it was a start. The problem began when the lawyer read the will. Yes, my father had a will. And guess what? He left everything to his male child. Everything. The house, the land, the savings for me and my mother, just the right to live there as long as Tony allowed. But that's not fair. My mother finally found the courage to complain. The lawyer shrugged. The law allows it. Your husband could dispose of his assets as he wished. I saw the triumphant smile on Tony's face. Now it was official. He was the owner of everything, of everyone, of me. That night, lying in bed with Charles sleeping beside me, desperation hit hard. Without money, how was I going to run away? The bus ticket to New York was expensive. I needed food for the journey, formula for Charles, a place to stay once I got there. That's when I remembered Mrs. Wilson, the mayor's wife. She had said she would help if needed. Was the offer still valid? The next day, I made up that I needed to go to the pharmacy to buy medicine for Charles. It was a lie, but my mother let me go. She was so lost without her husband that she didn't question anything anymore. I ran to the mayor's house. Huge mansion, manicured garden, high fence. I clapped at the gate, my heart in my mouth. What if she didn't want to receive me? What if she had regretted the offer? But she came, beautiful as always, silk dress, gentle smile. Jessica, what a surprise. I heard about your father. My condolences. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. I need to talk to you. She saw the desperation in my face. Come in, dear. Let's talk. In the luxurious living room, with Charles in my lap, looking in wonder at the crystal decorations, I told her everything. Not the sordid details. I still didn't have the courage for that, but the essentials. That I needed to leave that house, that I had nowhere to go, that I feared for my son's future. She listened in silence. When I finished, she sighed deeply. I suspected as much. Small town, one always suspects. But I never had proof. Never knew how to help. Now you can. Please, I just need money for a ticket to start over. She became thoughtful. After a time that seemed eternal, she spoke. I can do better than that. I have a friend in Washington, D.C., owner of a family boarding house. She needs help in the kitchen, offers room and board. It's not much, but it's honest work and a safe place. Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, far enough from Oakage to never cross paths with Tony again. My heart raced with hope. I accept anything. I'll call her today. And the ticket? Consider it a gift. I almost cried with gratitude. But Mrs. Wilson wasn't finished. There's one condition, Jessica. You leave and don't come back. Don't write, don't send news, cut off all contact. It's for your safety and for mine. My husband can't know I helped. Do you understand? I understood. Of course I understood. The mayor wouldn't like to know his wife helped the fallen girl of the town to escape. It could stain the family's reputation. I promise, no one will ever know. I left there with a light heart for the first time in years. I had a plan, I had help, I had hope. I just needed to act quickly before Tony noticed anything. The following days were of careful preparation. I separated the essentials. Clothes for Charles, documents, the little money I had hidden. Everything fit in one travel bag. Entire life in one bag.
Rosie helped as she could. She found out the bus schedules, the best route, where to make stops. She taught me how to use the phone booth, how to ask for information, basic things I had never needed to know. It's different in big cities, she explained. You have to be smart, not trust just anyone. The set date arrived, November 3rd, 1966. The bus left at 4 in the morning. Mrs. Wilson sent the ticket money with Rosie, along with a letter of recommendation for her friend in Washington. The night before, I barely slept. I kept looking at Charles, memorizing every detail. The light brown hair, the upturned nose, the chubby little hands. My son, my treasure. Who was going to know the world beyond those four walls? At 3 in the morning, I got up slowly. I dressed Charles while he was still sleeping, grabbed the bag, made the sign of the cross. The house was silent, my mother snoring softly in her room. Tony had gone out. It was Friday, his night at the town's brothel. I walked through the living room on tiptoe. Each creak of the floorboards seemed like thunder. Charles moved in my arms, mumbled. I shushed him softly, rocking him. I was almost at the door when I heard, "Really leaving?" I froze. I turned slowly. My mother was there, standing at the kitchen door, old nightgown, disheveled hair, eyes red from crying. "Mom." "I know. I've always known everything." Her voice was a broken whisper, but I never had the courage. "Your father. I was afraid. Why didn't you protect me?" The question came out before I could hold it back. Years of hurt in one sentence. She lowered her head. "Because I'm weak. Always have been. But you're not. You're strong, Jessica. Stronger than I'll ever be." We looked at each other in the dark. Mother and daughter. Two opposite destinies. "Go," she finally said. "Go and don't look back. Take care of that boy. Give him the life you deserve." I approached, kissed her face, wrinkled skin, smell of lye soap, taste of tears. "Goodbye, Mom." "Goodbye, my daughter." I went out the door without looking back. The dawn air was cold, cutting. Charles nestled against my chest, going back to sleep. I walked quickly through the deserted streets. Each step took me further from that house, that life, that nightmare. The bus station was small, poorly lit. Rosie was already there, faithful to the end. "I thought you weren't coming anymore." I almost didn't. My mother. She knows. She always knew. Rosie nodded. Between women, some things don't need to be said. The bus arrived puffing, releasing black smoke. The driver, a pot-bellied old man, took my ticket without looking. "Washington, huh? Long trip. 18 hours if we don't break down on the way." 18 hours. Almost a whole day moving away from hell. Approaching who knows what. But anything was better than staying. I climbed the steps with difficulty, balancing Charles in the bag. The bus was almost empty. Half a dozen passengers sleeping, heads bobbing to the rhythm of the road. I chose a seat in the back, near the window. I settled Charles, who was now awake, looking at everything with baby curiosity. Rosie came up to say goodbye. "Take care of him and yourself." "I will. When you get there, forget this place. Forget everything. Start from scratch." Like, it's that easy. She held my hand. "It's not easy, but it's necessary. You deserve to be happy, Jessica. Both of you do." The driver honked. "Let's go. I've got a schedule to keep." Rosie ran down. She waved from the sidewalk as the bus started. I waved back, eyes burning with unshed tears. The bus picked up speed, leaving behind the familiar little houses. The church where I suffered in silence, the cemetery where my father was rotting, the square where I never played. Oak Ridge, disappearing in the dark, becoming memory, becoming past. Charles pointed to the window, amazed at the lights passing by quickly. "Look, Mama, look." "Yes, my son, we're leaving far, far away." He clapped his hands, happy with the adventure. So small, so innocent. He had no idea of the hell we were leaving behind, of the monster who slept in that house and who would wake up in a few hours to discover that his prey had escaped. I imagined Tony's face when he saw the empty room, the anger, the hatred, but also the relief. Now he wouldn't have to share the inheritance or support his sister's bastard. Yes, he would be furious at first, but then he would find another victim. Men like him always do. The town was full of defenseless girls, of passive fathers, of weak mothers, but I was no longer one of them. The road stretched ahead, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the fields. The sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky pink and orange. Charles slept in my lap, soft breathing, little hand clutching my blouse. 18 hours. 18 hours to leave Jessica Randall behind and be born another person. Someone without a past, without trauma, without fear. Someone who could start over. I rested my head against the window, watching the landscape change. Sparse fields, poor little towns, isolated gas stations. The deep South passing before my eyes. So big, so full of possibilities. In Washington, nobody knew me. Nobody knew my story. I could make up anything. War widow, country girl trying her luck, ordinary single mother, anything but the truth.
The truth would remain buried in Oak Ridge, along with my father, along with my innocence, along with the girl I was and would never be again. Charles moved, mumbled. I gave him the breast. I still breastfed, more for comfort than for hunger. He sucked eagerly, green eyes looking at me with absolute trust, green like his father's. But that didn't matter anymore. They were just eyes, beautiful eyes of my beautiful son who would grow up free, happy, never knowing where he came from. The bus swayed, the engine rumbled, the hours passed. Quick stops in little towns whose names I didn't even know. People getting on and off, lives crossing for moments. At one of the stops, I got off to use the bathroom. Woman alone with baby always draws attention. An older lady offered to hold Charles while I went. Thank you, but I'll take him with me. Never, never again would I leave him alone with strangers. Never again would I blindly trust. I had learned in the worst way that danger lives where you least expect it. Back on the bus, I ate the lunch that Rosie had prepared. Sandwich, a banana, water in a little bottle. Simple food, but with a taste of freedom. The afternoon fell. The night came. Charles slept most of the journey, waking only to nurse or when the bus shook too much. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Each mile was a victory. Each town passed a relief. Finally, it was almost midnight when the driver announced, "Next stop, Washington, D.C. bus station. Those getting off, get your stuff ready." Washington. We had arrived. I looked out the window and saw the lights of the city. Large blocks of concrete illuminated wide streets. A completely different world from what I knew. I took a deep breath. The new life began now, without looking back, as Rosie said, without fear, as my mother never managed, just Charles and me against the world. The bus stopped. I got off with wobbly legs, body aching from the journey. Charles woke up with the movement, looked around, startled by so much light, so much noise. "It's okay, my love. We've arrived." The bus station was enormous compared to Oak Ridge's. People everywhere, buses coming and going, vendors shouting. I felt lost, small but also invisible. Perfect. It was exactly what I needed to disappear into the crowd. I looked for a public phone, dialed the number Mrs. Wilson had given me. A female voice answered, "Good Hope Boarding House." "Hello? Is Mrs. Martha?"
Mrs. Wilson sent me. Jessica Randall. Oh, yes, I was expecting you. Come, dear, take a taxi. Give the driver this address. A taxi? I had never taken a taxi in my life, but I learned quickly. Big cities teach you the hard way. The driver, a friendly, middle-aged man, helped with the luggage. First time in Washington? Yes, you'll like it. New city, full of opportunity. Opportunity. It was all I needed. The boarding house was in a residential area, a simple but clean building. Mrs. Martha was waiting at the door. A woman of about 50, gray hair tied back, checkered apron. You must be tired. Come, I've prepared a room. The room was small but had the essentials: a single bed, an improvised crib for Charles, a dresser, a mirror. Luxury compared to what I knew. The kitchen is on the ground floor. You start tomorrow. Okay, I can. Of course I can. Great. There are 3 meals a day for the guests. Breakfast at 6, lunch at noon, dinner at 7. Payment is weekly, plus room and board. I nodded to everything. I would work whatever was necessary. That first night in Washington, lying in the strange bed with Charles sleeping peacefully in the crib beside me, I finally allowed myself to cry. Cry with relief, with fear, with hope, for everything I had lived and everything I was yet to live. Outside, the city slept. Planned city, modern, full of promises, where nobody knew me, where my past didn't exist, where I could be anyone. I chose to be Jessica Smith. Common name, without history, young widow, husband died in a work accident, one among thousands of migrants who arrived every day in the capital in search of a better life. And it was true, in a way. I was migrating. I was seeking a better life. Just not for a dead husband. The past stayed in Oakage. The future began there, in that cramped little room, in that strange city, with my son in my arms and freedom within reach. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be ours. And that was enough.
Washington was my salvation and my challenge. The first months at Mrs. Martha's boarding house were hard, but in a different way. It wasn't the terror from before. It was the hardness of honest work, of the heavy routine, but one that was free. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, leave Charles sleeping. Mrs. Martha took care of him while I worked, and go to the kitchen. Breakfast for 15 guests was no joke. Toast, fried eggs, freshly brewed coffee. Then I'd clean everything, prepare lunch, beans, rice, meat. Clean again, prepare dinner. In between, I'd run to nurse Charles, change diapers, give him attention. But you know what? It was good. It was exhausting. It was sweaty, but it was mine. Nobody touched me without permission. Nobody invaded my room. Nobody called me I was just Jessica, the cook, the quiet but hard-working young woman. Charles grew strong. At 1.5 years, he was already running around the boarding house playing with the guests. He was the joy of the place. Mrs. Martha melted for him. The chambermaids fought to play with them. For the first time, my son had a family. Odd, improvised, but a family. 1967 flew by. I saved every penny. The dream was to leave the boarding house, rent a little place just for us, however tiny, but ours, where I could raise Charles my way, away from curious looks, from uncomfortable questions. It was in 1968 that my life took another turn. A new guest appeared at the boarding house. Mr. Robert, a retired civil servant, recent widower, a man of about 60, educated, quiet. He'd stay there for weeks, then disappear, then come back. He noticed Charles. It was hard not to notice. A 2-year-old boy, smart, talkative, green eyes that drew attention. He started bringing little presents, A toy car here, a little book there. I thanked him, but kept my distance. Men who seemed too kind always made me wary. But Mr. Robert was different. He didn't try anything. He just talked, told stories, played with Charles. Gradually, I lowered my guard. He told me about his wife who died of cancer, about his children who lived far away, about the loneliness that weighed on him. "You remind me of my daughter," he said one day. The same strength, the same determination. One afternoon, Charles fell while playing and scraped his knee. He cried so much that nothing consoled him. Mr. Robert appeared with a first aid kit. "I was an Army medic," he explained, cleaning the wound. "I know how to take care of this." While he took care of Charles, talking to distract him, singing a silly little song, something changed in me. I saw there not a dangerous man, but a grandfather, someone who also needed family. The friendship grew slowly. He'd come to the kitchen, help peel potatoes, while we talked. He talked about the times of Kennedy, the civil rights movement, the hopes for a new country. I listened, learned, dreamed. One day he made the proposal. "Jessica, I have a house in Georgetown. It's been empty since my wife died. Too big for me alone. How about you and Charles living there? It's not a favor. You take care of the house, cook, and I pay a fair salary." My heart raced. A house? Leave the boarding house? It seemed too good to be true. But what will people say? He laughed. "Let them say what they want. I'm too old to care about gossip. You need a house. I need company. It's business, not romance." I thought long and hard. I talked with Mrs. Marta, who approved right away. "Robert is a decent man, Jessica. I've never seen him disrespect anyone." I accepted. In March 1969, we moved to his house. It was a simple but spacious townhouse. 3 bedrooms, yard, all neat. Charles got a room of his own for the first time in his life. The routine was peaceful. I took care of the house, prepared the meals. Mr. Robert left early, returned in the late afternoon. We talk at dinner, then each to their own corner, mutual respect, healthy distance. But children don't know these boundaries. Charles adopted Mr. Robert as his grandfather. Grandpa Rob, he called him. He followed the old man around the house, asked for stories, showed him drawings, and Mr. Robert, bless him, melted completely. It was he who taught Charles to ride a bicycle, who took him to the park for the first time, who explained about the planes that passed. "Look there, Charlie, that big one is a Boeing." Seeing the two together, my heart squeezed. This is what family should be. Affection without malice, care without ulterior motives. Everything that was missing in my childhood, my son was having. 1970 brought changes. Mr. Robert fell ill. Heart problem. I started taking care of him more closely. Medicine at the right time, special diet, forced rest. He complained, but obeyed. "You're worse than a sergeant," he joked. "It's for your own good." I know. That's why I put up with it. On an afternoon at the hospital, after a bigger scare, he held my hand. "Jessica, I need to ask you something. If something happens to me, don't talk like that. Listen, if it happens, I want you to keep the house, you and Charles. I've already arranged the papers." I protested. It was too much. I couldn't accept, but he insisted. "I don't have anyone, Jessica. The children barely call. You and Charles are my family now. Let me take care of you like you take care of me." I cried for the first time in years. I cried with gratitude, not for the money or the house, but for the gesture. Someone seeing me as a person, not as a thing. someone wanting to protect me, not use me. Mr. Robert got better, but became more fragile. I started sleeping in the next room to hear if he needed anything. Charles slept between us too. In my room when he was afraid. In his when he wanted a story. In 1971, I enrolled Charles in kindergarten. 5 years old, smart as can be. Blue uniform, little backpack, gap-toothed smile. My pride, my miracle. "Mom, why don't I have a dad?" he asked one day out of nowhere. I froze. I knew the question would come, but I wasn't prepared. "Your dad died, son, when you were a baby." "How did he die?" "Accident." "Working? Was he nice?" I took a deep breath. He was, yes, he was. A lie? But some lies are necessary. Some truths kill. Charles accepted the explanation for now, but I knew one day I would have to tell more. Make up details, create memories, anything but the truth. 1972 came with the presidential election. The whole country stopped to watch. Mr. Robert bought a new TV color, total luxury. We watched all the coverage together. Me, him, Charles, some neighbors. When Nixon won re-election, Charles painted his face red, white, and blue, ran down the street with the other children, normal, happy, free. Watching him there, celebrating with his little friends, I thought of Oak Ridge. Did it still exist? Was Tony still living there? Was my mother alive? I blocked the thoughts. That life had died. I was another person now. Jessica Smith, cook, single mother, Washington resident. The past didn't exist. But sometimes, in the sleepless dawn, it came back. In nightmares where Tony found me, where he took Charles from me, where everything started again, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, run to Charles's room, check if he was there, safe, sleeping peacefully. In 1973, Charles turned 7. Mr. Robert organized a party, cake, balloons, kids from the whole street. I took photos with the camera he had given me as a gift, frozen moments of unlikely happiness. That year, something changed between me and Mr. Robert. It wasn't romance. Neither I wanted it, nor did he try. It was something deeper. Complicity. Real family. Built day by day in mutual care and affection without demands. He got worse in the winter. Hospitalization after hospitalization. I divided myself between hospital and home, between caring for him and for Charles. Neighbors helped. Teachers understood. A support network I never had before. One night at the hospital, he was too weak to speak loudly. Whispered, "Jessica, you were the daughter I always wanted to have. Charles, the grandson I never met. Thank you. Thank you," I replied, holding his hand, "for everything." He died in September, peaceful, sleeping as he deserved. The funeral was simple. His children showed up, 2 men in suits with unfriendly faces. They questioned everything: who I was, what I was doing there, why their father left the house to me. "I'm his housekeeper," I explained. "A housekeeper who lives in the house, who inherits everything?" The insinuation was clear. They thought I was a lover, a gold digger, a con artist. I let them talk. I didn't owe explanations to anyone. The lawyer resolved everything. The papers were in order. Mr. Roberts' wishes registered. The house was legally mine and Charles's. The sons left grumbling, promising to contest. They never appeared again. 1974 began differently. For the first time in my life, I had something of my own. A house, stability, a future.
Charles was growing healthy, studious. I found a job at a diner nearby. I needed to work, earn our living. But the nights were difficult, without Mr. Robert. The house seemed too big, too empty. Charles missed his surrogate grandfather. I missed the company. That's when I met Mrs. Neely, the neighbor next door. Tough New Orleans lady, respected voodoo priestess. She saw my distress, offered help. "Girl, you're carrying something heavy. I can see it in your eyes. Wanna talk?" I refused at first. Then, on a night of insomnia, I knocked on her door. We drank coffee, talked. I didn't tell everything. I never told everything. But I talked about the loneliness, the fear, the nightmares. She listened, nodded, understood.
Everyone has ghosts, child. The secret is not letting them control us. We became friends. She looked after Charles when I worked late. I helped at her spiritual gatherings, community, belonging, things I never had in Oak Ridge. Charles loved the stories she told, saints, legends, myths. He learned about culture, religion, respect for differences. He grew open-minded, big-hearted. "This boy will go far," Mrs. Neely prophesied. "He has his own light." I hoped it was true. For him to go far indeed, far from any shadow of the past, from any mark of the violence that created him. In 1975, Charles turned 9, preteen questioner, curious about everything. The questions about his father returned, more elaborate. What kind of work did he do? Construction. He helped build Washington. Why aren't there any photos of him? We lost everything in a move. How did you two meet? Each question, a new lie. Each lie, another brick in the wall that protected him from the truth. I started writing. At night, after Charles was asleep, I put on paper the memories, not to publish, God forbid, but to organize, to make sure I would never forget, even wanting to. Oak Ridge, Tony, the basement, the escape, all there in crooked letters. Notebook hidden in the back of the drawer. One day, I thought, when I die, someone will find it, will read it, will understand. But not Charles. Never Charles. 1976 brought adolescence for real. Voice changing, pimples on the face, interest in girls. Normal, healthy, everything adolescent should be. But the eyes, those damn green eyes. Each year that passed, more like Tony's. Sometimes, at a specific angle, in a particular expression, I saw the monster in my angel. I'd take a deep breath. Remember, genetics is not destiny. Nurture overcomes nature. My son was good, would be good, regardless of the blood in his veins. In 1977, the graduation from middle school.
Charles in a suit, diploma in hand, proud smile. Me in the audience crying secretly, my boy becoming a man, a good man. The years went by and I watched each moment as if it were the last. By 1978, my Charles was preparing for college entrance exams. "Mom, I want to go to college, engineering like Dad." Dad? The invented ghost he idolized? The dead hero who never existed? "You will, son. You'll achieve all your dreams, his dreams, mine, those of the imaginary father I created to protect him." In 1978, those were nights of study. Textbooks spread across the table. Nervousness in the air. Charles tense, me even more so. When the result came out, accepted at Georgetown University, civil engineering, it was an explosion of joy. Party in the street. Mrs. Neely made her special jambalaya. Neighbors brought drinks, music until late. Charles hugging me, laughing, celebrating.
I made it, Mom. I made it. We made it. I fought against all odds, against everyone. We made it. College was expensive. Nobody warned about that. Books, materials, transportation. I went back to working 2 jobs, diner during the day, cleaning at night. Exhausting but necessary for his future. 1979 brought news. Charles, in his sophomore year, steady dating a girl from his class, doing an internship, becoming the man his father never was. Honest, hardworking, caring. One day, he came home with his girlfriend, Claudia, classmate. Decent girl, studious, pretty, traditional Washington family. Mom, this is the woman of my life. I smiled. He was 19 and already knew. Young love, but true love. 1980 was the year of graduation. My son, the engineer, tears of pride, exploding chest, him on stage receiving the diploma, looking for my face in the crowd. Graduation party, Claudia's family present, doctor father, teacher mother, lawyer, siblings, fine people, educated, treating me well despite everything. The single mother, the housekeeper, the one without a last name.
Mrs. Smith, you raised a wonderful man, Claudia's mother said. He was born good, I replied. Lie, truth, both things. Born of violence, but chose love. A miracle I cultivated with blood, sweat, and silence. 1981 arrived with a wedding. Full church veil and wreath, wedding march. Charles in a suit, Claudia in white, me as maid of honor. The groom's only family. Where are your relatives, Mrs. Smith? They asked. I don't have any. All dead. Another half-truth. Dead to me, at least. The priest talked about union, family, Christian love. I thought of Oak Ridge, of the forced marriage, of the Kara disguised as sacrament. I compared it with this. 2 young people choosing each other, loving each other, respecting each other. The difference between hell and heaven. 1982 was blessed. First grandchild, girl, Mary, Claire, beautiful, healthy, crier. Charles, silly with fatherhood. Claudia, radiant. Me, a grandmother at 51. I held that little creature in my arms. Perfect, innocent, real granddaughter, real family. No secrets, no shadows, no fear. Grandma, she looks just like you, someone commented. I looked closely. Dark hair, upturned nose, nothing of green eyes. Thank God. Nothing that reminded me of him. 1984 brought the second grandchild, John Robert. Homage to Mr. Robert. Smiling boy, calm. Charles building his own house. Stable life. Happy family. Everything I dreamed of. More than I deserved. Sometimes at family gatherings, I'd look around. Full table, people laughing, children playing. Normal, everyday, blessed life. Nobody imagined. Nobody would ever imagine. And that's how it had to be. In 1985, Charles took the big step, started his own firm. Small but promising. Government contracts, important works, respected name in the market. Mom, I want you to stop working. Let me take care of you now. I resisted at first. Independence was my security, but he insisted. Claudia supported. After all, I deserved to rest. I retired from cleaning life as a full-time grandma. Picking up grandchildren from school, making carrot cake, telling bedtime stories, made-up stories, of course. Fairies, princes, happy endings, no real monsters, dark basements, desperate escapes. 1986 marked our move to a bigger house. Garden, pool, room for each child. Charles insisting that I live with them. You're the head of the family, Mom. Your place is with us. My place. After so much no place, I finally had one.
But the past doesn't rest. On an insomnia night that same year, I turned on the TV, the news, stories from all over the country. And suddenly, a report. Town of Oak Ridge modernizes infrastructure. Oak Ridge, it still existed? Aerial images, interviews, progress. I looked for familiar faces, found none. 20 years change a lot of things. Was he still living there? Had he married? Had children? Had he done to others what he did to me? I turned off the TV. Some portals should not be opened. Here we are, me at 73. Time flies when you're busy living instead of just surviving. Charles, a grandfather too. Gray hair, but same sweet smile. Mary Claire, a doctor, like the surrogate grandfather she never met. John Robert followed his father's footsteps in engineering. Alice, a teenager, dreaming of being a writer. Great-grandma, have you ever thought about writing your memoirs? She asked the other day. I almost choked on my coffee. What memoirs, my angel?
Grandma's life doesn't have much adventure, but some stories are not to be told. They are to be buried, forgotten, erased, so that the next generations can write their own, clean, without the stains of the past. These days I dreamed of Oakage, first time in years, but it wasn't the nightmare. I dreamed of the town catching fire, turning to ashes, the wind carrying everything away. I woke up feeling light. Now recording this video for the Grandma's True Stories channel, I tell this story for the first time. Why now? Maybe because time is running out. Maybe because other women need to hear it. Maybe because keeping secrets is tiring and I'm too old to carry this weight alone. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I know it was heavy. I know it hurts, but it needed to be said. There are many Jessicas out there trapped in their own basement, thinking there's no way out. There is a way out. There's always a way. Sometimes it's a door. Sometimes it's a window. Sometimes it's a hole in the wall that you have to dig yourself. But there's a way out. The miracle wasn't the money for the ticket or the job offer or even my father's death. The miracle was that I believed I deserved better. It was having the courage to seize the chance when it appeared. Charles doesn't know this story. He will never know. Some would say it's wrong that a son has the right to know where he came from. I say a son has the right to be happy, to live without the weight of crimes he didn't commit, to believe his father was a hero, not a monster. I protected him his whole life from this truth. It's my last act of love. Taking this secret to the grave, letting him continue to believe in the beautiful lie I built. Engineer father died in an accident. Mother's young love. Today, I'm even grateful for his green eyes. They taught me that appearance doesn't define character, that evil isn't inherited, it's learned, and that a mother's love can transform any cursed inheritance into a blessing. If you watch this far, do this grandma a favor. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, show that my story wasn't told in vain. And more. Tell me in the comments where you're from. I want to know if this story is reaching women from all over the country. The link is here in the description. Come be part of this chain of strong women, because our strength isn't in muscles or money. It's in surviving, in protecting, in transforming. My name is Jessica Randall, or rather, it was. Today, I'm Jessica Smith, Charles's mother, Mary Claire,
and John Roberts' grandmother, Alice's great-grandmother. I'm the woman who chose life, not death, who chose love, not hate, who chose to lie, to protect, not to speak, to destroy. And if I had to choose again, I would do everything the same. Until never again, Okich. Until forever, new life. That was my story. Our story. A story of miracles. Yes, but miracles that we ourselves make happen.